How's it going, everybody? It's Warren. Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder. This is going to be my non-spoiler review of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier Episode 1. So there won't be any spoilers about the episode in this video, but there are some very important things that I think you should know before going into the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series. This is a very, very different show than Wandavision. So whether you liked Wandavision or you didn't like Wandavision, here's a little information on what this show is really like. And if you love Marvel and you want to stay up to date on all things MCU, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest videos. So a big question I have been getting is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier similar to WandaVision? And the answer is no. Not only are these characters very, very different from each other, but the show is actually very different as well. WandaVision was kind of this new experiment that Marvel did that I really did enjoy. However, some fans did say that even though they did enjoy WandaVision, it didn't really feel like a Marvel project. And if you feel that way, I definitely understand that. The sitcom style type of TV show, mixed with some dark undertones, was kind of new for everybody. But with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right away, you know this is a Marvel project. It feels like a Marvel project. From everything down to the music, to the sound effects, to the comedy, to the interaction between the characters, to the action, and to the reference of other characters, and the fact that this is entirely woven inside of the MCU, and that is referenced. And of course, since this is essentially a Captain America spinoff, within the first couple of minutes we see things relating to Captain America, and there are some pretty big scenes involving good old Cap. Not actually him on screen, so don't think that he's going to show up, but things that he's done. So right away, it just feels like, yes, another Marvel Studios project. Another thing that you need to know is that this doesn't exactly feel like a TV show, it feels like a movie. Now, I know some people weren't exactly thrilled about Disney Plus, and instead of them doing movies, they're now doing shows. But keep in mind, we're still getting the same amount of movies, and they're adding the shows, so it's just more content for us. But the series does feel like a movie, and that's because it had an insanely big budget. I think it was rumored to be over $150 million. And the way that director Kari Skoglund talked about shooting this series is she said that they shot it like a movie. They shot 6 episodes, so 6 hours worth of footage, and then they just edited it and cut it down to what they wanted to show throughout these 6 episodes. And I quite enjoyed it. I did think that it was very cinematic. Both Sam scenes and Bucky scenes were both done exceptionally well. It doesn't feel like it's any different than actually watching a movie, from the graphics to the acting to the story. It feels like we're getting a Captain America spin-off movie that's based on Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We're just getting parts 1 through 6. Now, the next thing I'll talk about is the action in the show. A lot of really good action. As you've probably seen from the trailers, there's a lot of things that happen. Falcon flying through the air, helicopters, hand-to-hand combat. They use guns, they use explosives. It's extremely fast-paced when they do all of this. And granted, I've only seen the first episode so far, but everything that they do involving the action sequences and fighting is actually pretty creative. The way that Falcon fights and flies is different than anything we've seen from him in the past. And as we've seen from the trailers and photos and promotions, he does have a new suit, which they do talk about. Now, considering that this is the first episode of the series and it's supposed to be setting everything up, they actually do throw a good amount of action in this episode. The episode is about 48 minutes long. Now, of course, as Disney has showed us with WandaVision, the end credits are about 5 minutes long. Possibly even longer. So let's go ahead and say that there's 42 minutes of actual footage. Half of that is probably action sequences with Sam and Bucky. But the other half is done exceptionally well. The story makes a lot of sense. It's very grounded, it's very real. It addresses the questions that we have all been wondering since the end of Avengers Endgame when Captain America gave Sam the shield. And there's a reason for everything, a good reason behind everything that takes place with Sam and with Bucky, because in the beginning, as most people know, they have 2 different stories. Throughout their time together in the MCU, they've had this love-hate relationship. They annoy each other, but they're friends, they're teammates. They fought together alongside of their best friend, Captain America. And they very much go over each of their personal stories before they get together in the first episode. And it's really cool to see because this takes place a handful of months after the events of Avengers Endgame. And of course, just like Wanda, this addresses what they're like after the blip. And keep in mind, both of them were indeed snapped. And that's something to keep in mind because this show actually addresses very real things within the MCU. As director Kari Skoglund said, if Avengers Endgame was this huge, magical, out of this world story, then The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a very grounded, very real story. It addresses things that you really haven't thought about before. Maybe in the back of your head you have, but things like, where exactly do superheroes get their money from? So it's a really good story that also kind of has some shocks to it. Now, it's only the first episode, so there's only so much that can be developed, but there are a few parts during this episode where you stop and you think, oh, dang. That's intense, which is of course something that you want. You don't want to be able to expect everything, you want to be surprised. And you are. There are some good surprises in this episode. Some really cool that you'll really enjoy, and some that are pretty intense like I mentioned before. And speaking of pretty intense, this episode actually does have a good amount of emotion in it. Now of course this show is an action thriller, but when it comes to a movie or a TV show, it just can't be all action all the time. There has to be some context behind everything. There has to be a good underlying story that gives the action a purpose. And even though the action is amazing and I could probably watch an entire series just based off of action, the story and the emotion that comes with it does back it up pretty well and sets up what is about to happen. And I think some of the real world actually resonates really well with what is happening in the MCU, because right now we're in the middle of a pandemic. In the MCU, they are right after the blip, right after everybody has come back. And that's something that is addressed in this, and it talks about how it affected families. And it shows the aftermath of that. Again, it's a very real story that hasn't exactly been addressed yet. We kind of got it in Spider-Man Far From Home, but they really kind of made light of the situation. Kind of made a joke about people just popping back up like in the middle of a basketball game where the band shows up, which was a very lighthearted way and kind of comedic way to go about it, because we still have questions like what happened to people who got dusted in airplanes? Do they snap back in the middle of the sky and fall to the ground to their death? This episode doesn't answer that question, but it does address the effects that the blip had. So, within The Falcon and the Winter Soldier's first episode, we have a lot of action that is very well done. No bad CGI or anything like that. An amazing story that goes along with it that is a very real story about what is actually happening within the MCU right now. It has some surprises in it, some of which will shock you and some of which you'll feel very, very good about and be very happy to see. It has a lot of emotion and it sets up what is to come in the future episodes. And of course, last but not least, Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan, of course, crushed it. They've been playing these characters for a very long time. Sebastian Stan has been playing Bucky since Captain America the First Avenger in 2011. That's 10 years. And Anthony Mackie has been playing Falcon since Captain America the Winter Soldier, which was in 2014, which means he's been playing the character for 7 years. So they really know how to get into the minds of these characters, and it really does show on screen, not just with the action and the jokes, but with the serious stuff as well. So, big shout out to them and congratulations to them for crushing their roles once again. Shout out to the director, Carrie Scoglin. She did an amazing job. The writers all did a good job, and the cast and crew seemed to be pretty great for the whole entire show. I loved Wandavision. I did. But right now, I'd have to say that I like The Falcon and the Winter Soldier more, and I've only seen the first episode. I think that's primarily due to the whole Marvel feel. The show is much more what we're used to, so I think I like it a little bit more due to that. But WandaVision was still great, but if you're looking for that Marvel feel in a project, you're going to love The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So let me know how excited you are about The Falcon and the Winter Soldier in the comments below. What do you want to see out of it? Be sure to let me know and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest videos. And of course, I'll be doing a watch party tomorrow night. It'll start at 11:50 p.m. Pacific time. See you all there tomorrow. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm now on TikTok doing different videos, but of course, they're still Marvel videos. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.